Welcome to Tales She Told Me, a podcast featuring ordinary women who have overcome and done extraordinary things. I'm your host, Farah Haydar. Joining me today is Jen Drummond. Jen achieved business success as the founder and CEO of a thriving financial services company. Her move to Park City, Utah with her kids fed her family's passion for everything outdoors, from hiking and biking to skiing and mountain climbing. But on a snowy evening in 2018, Jen's life was knocked off its tracks. She was in a horrific car accident that brought her inches from death. All the authorities and experts agreed that she shouldn't have survived. Yet somehow she did. In the aftermath of that brush with death, it became crystal clear to Jen that while she can't control when she dies, she and the rest of us can choose how we live. Jen's confrontation with death viewed her with vigor, enthusiasm, and commitment for full engagement. Now, more than ever, she is focused on becoming an inspiration, guide, and cheerleader, not just for her own children, but for all of us. She spends her time inspiring others to live a life of significance. Her book, Quit Proof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals, shares her story and strategies for success. Okay, Jen, that was quite a bio. Personally, I'm always fascinated with the turning points life grants, right? And this
Yes, ribbons.
Yep, this was one huge curveball life threw you. So just out of curiosity, before this happened, how was your life? Were you content, happy, or did something feel off?
Yeah, I would say I was content. I wouldn't say that I was thriving, but I was definitely surviving. My kids were at an age where they were in school. And so I had this time, but I didn't really know what to do at that time because I was like, I want to be available for them if they need me. So I was definitely putting my life on hold. And I told myself, when they get to college, then I'll get back to me. But right now I'm just in the season of motherhood and this is what it is. And I think the universe was like, nope, Jen, there's actually more. And it woke me up with the car accident.
So tell us a little about that. What happened?
Yeah. So I was driving home from a nearby town. And I was paying attention to the reservoir on the side of the road. And I just remember thinking, why isn't it frozen over? Are we going to get out of the statewide drought naturally? My mind was wandering. And then my attention got pulled back to the road. And I realized I was coming up extremely fast on a semi truck. And so then I looked in my rearview mirror, saw that I could get into the fast lane, went to get into the fast lane, and I didn't make it. So the passenger headlight and the semi trailer hit each other, and I started going end over end 3 times, and then started rolling sideways, then ended up upside down in the median. And I just remember hearing someone say, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then the windshield of my car being pulled back. And I caught eyes with this person and I realized, oh, they're talking to me. And I'm like, am I okay? I'm repeating in my mind's eye. And I look at that human and they were their expression made me concerned. I'm like, I don't think I am based on what this person looks like. So I closed my eyes and I wiggled my fingers and toes. And I remember saying out loud, I can feel my fingers and toes. I can feel my fingers and toes. And the guy's like, you're going to be okay. I'll stay here and talk to you until the ambulance comes. So the ambulance came. I went to the hospital. I checked out, came home. A few weeks later, I did have to go back to the hospital because I kept spiking a fever and we really couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was because the seatbelt had put pressure against a breast implant. And so then that ruptured and I had to get a new implant. So the joke is I got a new lease on life, a new car, and new boobs, right? So it could have been a lot worse at my age. Um, and then the police called shortly after that, and they said that they tried to rebuild the accident over 50 different times, and they haven't been able to build a scenario where I live.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I ask you, how old were you when that happened? Do you mind?
I was 38.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Said, I have this weird theory about 38 to 42 that every woman that I've spoke to, somewhere between the ages of 38 to 42, has some kind of crisis, whether it's a crisis of conscience, something happens. It's like that's when life taps you on the
Sweet
shoulder and
spot.
goes, Wake up.
Wake up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's more to life. No, it was definitely a wake up call because you tag in that accident and then you add in a girlfriend of mine went running on a trail and it was wet out that day. And I didn't go with her. And she slipped, hit her head on a rock, and never came home. And so those 2 events happening so close together, and mine being this horrific crash that I survived, and hers being a run that you can push like a stroller on, and she doesn't get to come home, and that's something healthy. Like, the only way I could piece this together in my mind is to say, "I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And am I living every day?"
So now tell me about like the aftermath, because I feel like sometimes these pivotal things happen in our life and we get up the next morning and it's like nothing has really changed in our environment, right? Like
Right.
everyone's still going on, life is still happening. What was that like for you? I mean, was there a moment where you looked and said, I can't go back to what I was?
You're in this state of awe I mean, I wish you could live in it forever, but it doesn't last forever. But when I remember coming home, and I was almost an observer of my own life for a while. And you watched everything. And instead of getting fired up or trying to fix something or change something or mediate something, you just sat there and observed it and you're just in awe. Like, I have 2 kids that are fighting before I would have been, "Okay, don't pick on your brother," or "Let's sit down and talk," and da 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 da. I remember watching myself just sit there in awe that I have these 2 children that are so convinced of their viewpoints, and they actually love the other one so much that they want them to feel and see things the same way, and I just allowed it to be, and I'm like, "Isn't life magic?" That you can have this passion, you can have this life, you can have this viewpoint, and it's okay, there's not a right or a wrong.
Yeah. It changes your perspective versus being annoyed. Like, guys, stop fighting. I just want you to go to bed, right?
Yeah, no, I got a call from the principal's office, like, a few weeks later, and the principal one of my kids was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing in school, and the principal's like at the end of the call, he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I just thought you'd be a little more disappointed." I'm like, "I'll be honest." I'm like, "I am disappointed that my son was disruptive in the classroom. I'm sorry about that." I go, "But what you don't understand is that I am so grateful that I'm here to even have this phone call
Yeah.
because it could have gone an entire way and I would not be here for these moments." Like, you're just so grateful for all the little moments.
Now, do you think your kids felt that in a way? Like, were they aware of how bad the accident was, or did you kind of shield them from that?
I shielded them from that. They were pretty young. I don't know if they would have had a place to land that in their head. And it was traumatic enough for me that I didn't want my environment to reinforce that trauma. I was kind of like keeping them innocent gave me a place to become innocent again. Because I remember going down to the dealership to get a new car. And randomly enough, there was like a car that was perfect that I wanted. So I grabbed that and I got the keys and then I realized I took an Uber down there, now I have to drive home. I hadn't driven since the accident, and so I sat in that parking lot for probably 45 minutes having negotiations with myself. If I don't get on this road now, it's only gonna get harder, right? Like, I know I have to drive. It's gonna be okay. I drove all the times before. It's fine, and I remember, like, pulling out, and I mean, it was 40 minutes maybe or 45 minutes from the dealership to my home. And my heart must have raced the entire time, and especially when I went past the semi, I would try to go as far away as possible because it would just my heart would be my throat. I got home and I went to bed. I was so exhausted from that 45-minute drive that was just shocking, and it probably took me 6 to 9 months to be able to drive on the highway and not have my heart go in my throat every single time I passed a semi.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
was fascinating.
that exposure therapy, right? That
Yeah.
discipline to push through,
Yeah.
do it. So tell me how you go from that. How did the climbing a mountain on your birthday happen? Because that was like the next step in this evolution, right?
Yeah, definitely. So 2019 became a year of reflection and pause and why am I here and what's my legacy and who am I? And I had these bucket lists going of things I wanted to do, see, experience, explore. And when I started looking at the list, I realized in 2020 I was turning 40.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what on this list could I do for my 40th birthday that would signify like the significance of being here? And on the list is climb a mountain. I'm like, I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday. That'll be perfect. So I asked some friends that were into mountaineering, hey, if you could climb one mountain in the whole world, what would it be? And the general consensus was a mountain named Ama de Blanc.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I hadn't heard of it before, but they're like, oh, you know it. It's the Paramount Pictures logo. It means the mother's necklace. It's located in the Himalayas. It's this beautiful mountain. I'm like, oh, perfect. All of that sounded great. So I started training, and then COVID happens. And I'm not going anywhere, right? No one's flying to foreign countries. No one's traveling. And in fact, now I'm a homeschool teacher to 7 children because kids aren't in school. So I'm teaching the kids, working on stuff. One day, one of my sons is struggling with his math homework, and I give him the proverbial parent pep talk, like, we do hard things. You've got this. And he looks at me and he goes, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest? I said, honey, it is Ama de Blanc, not I'm a Dumb Blonde. But thank you. Finish your homework. We'll look at Everest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stinker. So he did, we did, he went to bed, and I realized, why not Everest? If Everest is the hardest mountain in the whole world in my son's eyes, I'm going to climb it. And I'm going to show him that whatever our mountain is, physical or metaphorical, we can summit it.
Yeah.
We can do hard things. So I call a coach, and now all of a sudden I'm training for Everest and Ama de Blanc. And the coach mails me a book about becoming an uphill athlete. Because I'm not really an uphill athlete at this point. I climbed one mountain one time.
Yeah.
So I in the front of this book, there is a foreword about a lady who got a Guinness World Record for doing something in the Alps. And I remembered having a conversation with my coach saying, I could have done that. Like, I can suffer. My kids learned how to read on Guinness World Record books. If I had a Guinness World Record, I'd be the coolest mom ever. Because guess what? Homeschool mom, not cool. Like,
No.
zero coolness going on right now.
Yeah.
And my coach was like, I'll think of something. Don't worry. Don't worry. Like, okay, fine. But I'm not growing pumpkins or speed eating hot dogs or doing like the fingernails thing that people do to get in that record book. He's like, no, no, no. I'll think of something cool. Then a few weeks later, he calls me. He's like, Jen, I've got the perfect record for you. And they're thinking, okay, kind of forgot about the conversation we had. He's like, I think you should be the first woman to climb the 7-second summits.
Okay.
And just like you, right now, I'm like,
What?
what are those? I don't know. What are you talking about? Like, what's a second summit? 7? What? And he's like, okay, listen. He goes, the 7-second summits are the second highest point on each of the 7 continents. They're actually harder than the first 7, which is why they've only been done by one male. You would be the first woman to do it. And he goes, and think about it. 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 children. Sounds like a jackpot to me.
Oh.
I'm like, it kind of does. Like, so I looked at it. I'm like, let's try it. Like, what does it matter? Let's give it a shot. I'd never slept in a tent on snow before, but we'll figure it out. It'll be good.
I think that's one of the keys to the thing is like not getting caught up in the details, thinking I will just figure it out, right? Like I'm going to get there and I'm going to figure it out. It might not be comfortable, it might not be nice. Like I'm not guaranteed comfort, but I'm guaranteed that I'll get through it. Right?
Yeah. No, and I keep like looking back now that I have the record. I'm like, why didn't I pick like 7 nicest beaches in the world? Or why didn't I pick like something that was less suffering and more enjoyable? I have no idea.
So these are the 7-second summits. So you start training for this, right? And you went obviously from climbing a difficult mountain to Mount Everest to now the 7-second summit. Talk to me a little about how you train for something like that, because I could assume it's not just about athletic ability.
Yeah, no. I would say it's interesting when you get into the mountaineering community. I would say it's 30% physical and 70% mental. And that physical isn't just like being fit for the mountain because most people are fit enough to climb the mountain by the time they get there. It's staying healthy. Because when you're in those extreme environments and you're eating different foods or you're not, maybe the water doesn't get boiled all the way or whatever else like that, it's hard to stay healthy while you're on those mountains. But most of it is mental. Luckily, I have 7 children, so my mental capacity is challenged all the time. So I'm like, the mountains have nothing on my little humans that call me mother.
I can sympathize. I'm actually one of 9. So my mom had
Oh,
9 kids.
wow.
So I definitely sympathize with you on how much that can stretch you. I started saying, "Oh, I want 6," and then I had my first one, and now I have 2, and I'm very happy. Yeah. But talk to me a little bit about the like, what was it like? How long did it take you to climb those summits?
Right. So it took me 2.5 years to finish the pursuit. Some of the expeditions are longer than others, right? So, for example, climbing Mount Townsend in Australia, it's a 1 day climb. It's a
Okay.
16-mile climb. I actually almost live as high as the mountain is there, so it's not that crazy, but it's crazy to get to, right? Like Australia isn't like next door.
No.
So that expedition, it took about a week, but part of it is because I'm like, if I'm flying all the way to Australia, I'm going to spend a couple days there before I fly all the way home.
Sure.
Um, and then you have Antarctica, which that actual mountain is only a 3-day climb, but it's getting to Antarctica. They actually have you climb the highest point first to acclimatize so that you're ready for the second highest point, and you come back. And then my longest one was K2, and K2 is 4 weeks.
Oh, where is K2?
K2 is located in Pakistan. So that's the second highest point in the world. And actually, I used Mount Everest to train for K2.
Oh, wow. So these were like long, some of them were longer climbs, obviously, than others. And you would have to pack up your gear and extreme temperatures and all that. What what do you think? Which one was your favorite?
No, it's like asking who's your favorite kid. Because like each mountain has such a special, unique story around it and a unique experience around it that you're just so grateful for all those experiences. I'd say the best thing about climbing is the people you meet, right? The places you get to visit, the views you get to see, the pursuit of something with others that connects you and unites you, and you learn how to become a team and you go forward. And I love it. I love it.
Do you still stay in touch with a lot of people that you met?
Oh, yeah, we do. I mean, they become family. Like when you do these big things together, I don't need to talk to them all the time, but I definitely like anytime I could reach out to any one of them, we would do anything for each other. We
Wow.
have such a friendship forged in depth.
So talk to me about some of the lessons you learned while you were training for this. I'm especially interested. I mean, the athletic stuff is the athletic stuff, but I'm especially interested in like when it got tough.
So I'll give you an example. I have a fear of heights. Would have been awesome to know prior to getting into mountaineering, but it just shows up. And so when I had this fear of heights and I had to climb Everest, there is ladders that you have to go across the crevasses with, right? And you look down into these 2,000-foot drops that you're standing with boots on a ladder that it's not like it's stable on the mountain, it's resting on it. So if you step on this foot, like the ladder goes up a little bit, or this foot, the ladder goes up the other way a little bit. And the only way I got through that is if I kept saying to myself, safe feet, safe feet, safe feet. And I like, then everybody teased me like, Jen, you always talk to yourself. I'm like, I have to talk to myself because if I let any gap get in there, my brain's going to tell me like, this is dangerous. This is scary. You got to stop. Like it's going to erupt. It's going to break the pattern and I'm going to go backwards. So for me, it was very much, okay, what's going to get me across this ladder? Safe feet are going to get me across this ladder. So I'm just going to repeat this mantra the entire time. I'm going to block out anything else being able to stick to me that's not going to serve me. And I'm going to get to the other side. And I still use that today. Like when I'm in a tough spot anywhere, I'm like, oh, what do I need to do to get from here to there? And I'm just going to repeat that on repeat until I start going.
So control your focus and what you vocalize, right? Like I've heard that from many athletes. It's like even if then they're in pain, they won't say I'm in pain. They'll just say I'm feeling good. You know, what
Yep.
they verbalize, what they put out is so important.
It's so important. And even from my car accident, I learned, you know, close your eyes and wiggle your fingers and toes and get back into your body. And then realize like anything outside of that is a story that's being written. And so you have the possibility to change that story to a narrative that serves you instead of overwhelms you. So I'll always tell my kids like, "Hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just check into your body. Close your eyes, shut out the world, feel your fingers and toes, and then reset."
So now you picked this up obviously a little bit later in age, like you didn't grow up
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
mountaineering. How do you feel like different aspects of mountaineering relate back to life?
So funny. That's why I wrote a book. So I wrote a book, Break Proof: 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals, because the mountain metaphor is so applicable to our everyday lives, right? You have to be intentional about climbing a mountain. You don't roll uphill. So everything you do. And so what I did in the book is I took people on the expedition with me. And in each expedition, I highlight a lesson that I learned that I can apply to our normal day lives to help us achieve what we're here to do. And one of the examples is big mountains take big teams. So if you have a big goal and you're getting exhausted and tired and you're losing your momentum and you're not excited about it anymore, maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you don't have a big enough team to help you get this thing to the finish line. And I think a lot of times we just do so much ourselves that we wear ourselves out and now we don't have the energy to do the thing that we want to do.
And
I
what
think,
about what would you say when you're talking about team? What would you say about having the right team around?
oh, it's such a difference, right? So, I mean, think about being on a roller coaster ride. If you're on a roller coaster ride and you feel secure in your seatbelt, you're going to be able to have fun and lift your arms up and enjoy the ride. If you're on that roller coaster ride and you don't trust your seatbelt, that experience for the next minute to minute and a half is an entirely different experience than
Yep.
somebody who's safe, right? And so your team is going to allow you to either raise your hands and have fun or vice grip for your life.
So did you have a team for your mountain climbs and was it different for each one or did you have the same team for all of them?
It was different for each one. Yeah. Yeah.
So that must have been like getting used to everybody again. Like what does the team do? Like do you spend weeks training with them or do you just meet them on the mountain?
So, I mean, sometimes you get the luxury of knowing them from other expeditions or spending some time like hiking into the base together and getting to know each other. But a lot of times it's on the mountain and a lot of times it's in the game, right? It's in the game. You understand how your teammates respond under pressure or feelings or different things like that. And it's really important to take care of the integrity of your team and realize like, hey, if this team's starting to fall apart or starting to go negative, you have the power to either join that or you have the power to change that. So I always knew when the team was struggling, that was my chance to step up and be a team leader and say like, no, that's not our story. Let's change it. And like start being what I need. Because if it's what I need, it's probably what the team needs. I'll give you an example of how this worked out for us in the mountains. On Everest, there's this section called the Lhotse Face. The Lhotse Face is like a 4,000-foot ice wall that feels like a never-ending stairmaster that's out in the elements, and it's so exposed. So you're either getting wind, you're getting sun, you're getting whatever, like, and when it's sunny, the sun is reflecting off a whole bunch of different surfaces, so it can get extremely hot. If a cloud comes around, the temperature can change like 40 degrees that fast. Or if the wind comes up, there's nowhere to hide, and all of a sudden you're just getting lambasted with this wind, and it's a really tough section, and normally everybody hates the Lhotse Face. That's like one of their least favorite sections on Everest. Well, we knew this going in, right? Like you hear the stories. We're not the first team to climb Everest. So we knew this. So on that section, our team took turns singing songs, telling jokes, recalling memories from their childhood. And when somebody was tired, then it was somebody else's turn to step up and like and lead that section. If you ask any one of my team members from our Everest expedition what their favorite part of Everest was, they're gonna tell you it's the Lhotse face. Yeah.
That's amazing. I have a couple of questions here. This is obviously not, I wouldn't say not safe, but a bit of a dangerous activity to take on, right? So I can hear some woman going, "Oh my God, why would you do that? You have 7 kids." What do you
Oh,
say to that?
I do. I get it all the time. I promise you, I have as many, maybe not quite, but I feel like I have as many haters as I have lovers. It's true. And I get it from their perspective, right? Because they can only see things through their lens. But let me share a story of one of these pursuits. I failed K2 the first time. I failed because a teammate of mine died in an avalanche. And I had a choice to continue up the mountain or to go back down. And I chose to go back down and put people over peaks. When I came home to the US, my kids came home from camp a couple days later and they're like, Mom, did you summit? Did you summit? I said, no, I didn't, but I had success. And they're like looking at me confused. I'm like, who we show up as people is way more important than anything we'll ever achieve. And I had success because I'm proud of who I showed up as and what I did for my team when things went wrong. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Well, fast forward, and it's time for me to go back to K2 to try it again. And so when I'm going back, I get a phone call from an individual that's looking to climb their country's prized peak that doesn't have the resources to make it happen. And can I help do that? Yes, I can. So I came back to K2 in 2022. I summited, and 30 minutes later, the first Pakistani female stands on top of her country's prized peak. The first Muslim female to stand on top of a prized peak like that, that shows all little girls. I have 10-year-old twin daughters. What it's like, right? They see somebody like them in this environment doing this great thing that they achieved. And so is it selfish that I climb these mountains? Or is it something that I really, really enjoyed? And look what the universe used me to make possible that shifts the world globally, right? So that both are true, right? Like both options are true, but what one gives us power and what one puts us in victim? I'm going to pick the story that's empowering. I want my daughters to understand that we come from privilege, and with privilege comes responsibility. And we have a responsibility to make an impact on this world, even if somebody says, I can't believe you just climbed that mountain, you left 7 kids at home.
Well, look, you were driving down a street being mom and you
Yes.
nearly died anyways, right? Like,
Right, right. I mean, it just goes back to my motto. I don't get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And I want people to look at me and be like, she lived.
yeah.
She made an impact. She did what she set her heart on fire and gave me permission to do the same. I'm in.
So what is it like hitting that peak after
Yeah.
a climb?
Yeah. So when you get to the top, everything disappears, right? You take in this deep breath. There's no time, there's no sound, there's no distance, there's no separation. There's no mountain, there's no Jen, there's no sun, there's just this moment of everything all at once. And then you breathe out, and then things start to form again, and things start to separate, and time starts to happen, and you feel the coldness. And it's almost like you tell your soul, okay, I'm going to throw you out into the universe and experience you again. I can't wait to figure out where I find you next.
Wow.
And you climb down and you start the pursuit of living and exploring and being and learning what it's like to be a human.
That's amazing. I have to tell you, I had that feeling once when I went skydiving. And I'm terrified of heights. I'm like you, terrified of heights, right? But I'm also the kind where I'm like, I don't want a fear I have to stop me from living or experiencing something I want to experience. So I went skydiving. And I was nearly like bad. It was tandem skydiving. I wasn't doing it alone. But like he literally had to like throw me in the plane. Like because I was just like, oh no, I changed my mind, right?
No, just kidding.
Just kidding. So we get out, and then like as you're free falling, it's kind of like this moment. It's like, well, if I'm gonna die, I might as well enjoy the ride, right? Like it's just enjoy the ride down. And then when they pull the parachute, everything goes quiet for that. Oh my God, it's like this heart opening experience, right?
Right.
And I still, to this day, I think it's been, actually, I'm not going to tell you how long it's been because it's been a long time, but that heart opening experience so I love the way you described it. That's beautiful. What is it like setting a world record?
Yeah, I could tell you it's exciting and disappointing at the same time, to be honest with you, because you're so excited, you're so grateful, you're so in awe of what humans can do and what focus and determination and resilience can add up to. And then there's a part of you that it's done.
Yeah.
Like, it's done. Like, it was so fun to be in the pursuit of it or to be chasing it or to becoming it, and then it's done, and you're like, "Wow, it's done." Like, how is it done? And the funny thing is I landed in the airport. One of my kids are all meeting me there. I'd been flying forever. My son gives me a hug that I came back. He's like, "Good job, mom." I'm like, "Thanks, honey." He goes, "Your breath smells." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been on a plane for a long time." And I'm like, "That's kind of it, right?" Like, it's congratulations. Welcome to real life. You're back to normal. Thank you, mom.
Yeah, they never let your ego get very big.
Oh, no, we're good. We're back. I'm just mom. No big deal.
So now I get to ask you a question I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
And it is, what is a weird habit or ritual you have that makes your life more joyful?
So I have this red light by my house, and I'm on the short side of the red light. And I used to get so angry at this red light. Like, why do I always have to hit the red light? I'm in a hurry, blah, 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 blah. And then one day I realized the red light doesn't care that it's red. Only I care that the red light's red. And so now I've turned that red light into my gratitude light. So anybody who's in the car with me anytime, we're like, oh, we hit the red light. It's time to do our gratitude list. And so we'll all start saying what we're grateful for. And so I love it because it's this simple thing that used to make me cranky that now makes me so happy. In fact, sometimes when I hit the light green, I'm like, oh man, I want to do my gratitude and I can't because we hit the light green.
Well, I guess it fits into your mantra, right? Like that, it's all about the attitude, it's all about the outlook of.
Yes,
Right.
definitely.
Well, Jen, it was a pleasure having you. And if you're out there and like to hear more from Jen, you can check out her website at www.jendrummond.com or follow her on Instagram at the Jen Drummond. All links in the show notes below. As always, I'd love to hear from you about this episode. What is your personal summit that you'd like to climb? Hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Farah Haydar. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll get notified when the next episode is available. Also, I'm giving away a PDF of some of the best quotes we've had on the show, beautifully designed to print and journal your thoughts. Email me at farah@farahhaydar.com and title it Quotes. Talk to you soon. Till then, chase your